At the time of writing this, we're less than a week into the final shape, and I'm already sick of Bleak Watcher and Getaway Artist. Every season for the last 2 years, I've tried out a build, and I've made some small tweaks, and I've gauged its potential. With Prismatic and the current artifact from Echoes, I think I can confidently say that this is one of the most fun and powerful builds in the game. I've got 2 minor variations here to show off, one that's more fun and one that's more powerful. The build overall functions around getting into a flow state where you've got near instant cooldowns and big damage. It's a hybrid of Void Lock and Strand Lock, and it's probably on the level or even past the level of what we've seen with Solar in the last year. Starting off, Threadling grenades are the bread and butter of this build, which when thrown split into 3 Threadlings that seek and explode on targets. They have been and still are a hugely versatile tool for add clear and burst damage. Combining them with Feed the Void can almost always guarantee a Devour proc, where final blows give a chunk of both health and grenade energy. This consistent takedown also pairs really well with Facet of Bravery, which gives our Void weapons volatile on grenade final blow and our Strand weapons unraveling rounds on charge melee takedowns. For melee, the choice goes to Incinerator Snap for the easy and consistent hits and final blows. It fires a fan of solar explosions in front of you. Landing all 5 will ignite a target for a pretty big chunk of burst damage. Pairing this with the earlier mentioned Facet of Bravery and another fragment, Facet of Dawn, allows us to convert an already super strong tool into a utility powerhouse. Facet of Dawn gives us a few seconds of Radiant when landing a hit from Incinerator Snap, and extends that to Radiant for our allies on final blow. The other option here is Arcane Needle, and I've done a little bit of testing, and it's pretty nice with this build. It helps us build up some of our Darkness Transcendence meter, because the only generation through this build is with Threadlings. It's up to you if you care more about the consistency from Snap or the versatility of Needle. We're also running Phoenix Dive here, paired with our second aspect, Weaver's Call. When you use your class ability, in this case Phoenix Dive, you send out all perched Threadlings, and 3 extras for free. Also, enemies killed by Strand damage have a chance to create a Threadling. Prismatic gives us the unique opportunity to pair Phoenix Dive with Weaver's Call, because usually it's locked to being used on Riftcast on Strand. Prismatic gives us the unique opportunity to pair Phoenix Dive with Weaver's Call, and usually it's locked to being on Riftcast on Strand. So, that's the baseline. Let's build on it. Usually with grenade builds, you tend to see Verity's Brow for the bonus damage and recharge rate, and that does require matching final blows and stacking to 5 times. What if you didn't need to stack Verities, and you had more ability regen, and it lasted longer? Introducing the classic Nezarec Sin. Void final blows give you 2.5 seconds of Abyssal Extractors. While Abyssal Extractors is active, you gain triple grenade and melee recharge rate, and double class ability and super regen rate. Usually you'll see this on Void builds, and there it's kinda outclassed by Verities because the Void melee and class ability don't really do much. But with Prismatic, we have 3 powerhouse abilities, all capable of single target and room clearing AoE. I haven't really had the tools at the moment to check if it works with Transcendence recharge rate, but it might. So, Void final blows give us ability cooldown. Sweet. Keep in mind that this stacks with Devour's average 7.5% grenade energy back on final blow. Before we get into the weapon choices, let's talk about the rest of the kit. For super, I think Needle Storm is good here, Song of Flame works too, it's really up to you. I prefer Needle Storm for the big burst DPS, but Song of Flame surpassed all expectations with how good it is, so it is down to personal preference, because we're not really using anything that requires a certain super. Our other 3 fragments are Facet of Sacrifice, where while having a light buff, ability final blows give us extra Darkness Transcendence energy. And because we're basically always going to have Devour or Radiant up, being able to squeeze out some extra Transcendence energy is really nice. Next up, Facet of Protection. While surrounded by 3 or more enemies, you get 15% damage resist. This stacks with the base 20% from being Transcendent, giving a total of 32% for basically free. And finally, to round out 5, we're taking Facet of Balance. Light final blows give melee energy, dark final blows give grenade energy. It just helps with the loop. I've often noticed that sometimes I'll throw my Threadling grenade and pop Phoenix Dive, and I'll instantly have another grenade through this and the Devour buff. Now, weapon choices. This is where the build splits off a little. My personal favorite, and arguably the most fun weapon in the game, Ruinous Effigy. Now, this isn't the best weapon for this build by any means, but it has some serious kick. I will never stop trying to convince people to use this weapon. It has lifesteal, it has pretty sizable damage, it has suppression for overloads, it has knockback immunity, and it has tech. In my opinion, this exotic represents Destiny and all its absurdity. I 100% recommend people to try this out. Use it for a bit, there is a little bit of a learning curve, but for lower end content, it slaps, and it's hilarious. Now this thing takes the energy slot in my more fun variation of this build, alongside the call in the kinetic slot, and either something like an edge transit or a hammerhead or commemoration in the heavy slot. The call, a Strand rocket sidearm, which does mean that we are running double special here. It works. I never run out of ammo when I'm using this thing with lead from gold. It hits hard. It's also a Strand weapon, so it'll have constant unraveling rounds. It's also got unstop from the seasonal artifact or episodic artifact or whatever we're calling it. Pair lead from gold with hatchling, and overall it's just a great time. The origin trait, Dealer's Choice, it's Thresh. It gives super energy on kill, but it does have a unique effect with the seasonal artifact that we'll get into in a minute. Edge Transit or Avoid Machine Gun sits pretty tightly in the heavy slot. Edge obviously for more damage, and MGs for content where Edge isn't required. Run whatever role you've got. The standards of Cascade or Envious with Bait and Switch are great, and for the MGs, Killing Tally, Reconstruction, Subsistence, etc. One small shout out I gotta make here is Buried Bloodlines. I still don't have it, but it could definitely work in this build. With the weaken on hit and extra devour consistency, it is definitely a workhorse. Now, if you want to talk about the real workhorse of this build, and the real optimal stuff, Graviton Lance. A 2-burst pulse rifle, which just got a huge buff by the way. It's overkill for most content. On final blow, enemies explode and release orbs that seek and explode again, and if something dies from any of the explosions, it will in turn create more explosions and more orbs. It's been in the game for years, I think everyone knows how Graviton works, and with the buffs, it's just become crazy. This thing slaps at every range, it pumps damage. It's basically the Sunshot of this season. I can't sing its praises enough. I think every endgame Void build will want this, it's absurd. One final blow can and will chain to max your Abyssal Extractors, Devour Uptime, Transcendence Bar, and Grenade Energy. The cherry on top is the Seasonal Artifact. Void is very strong, but so is Prismatic. Winning Hand gives the call Incandescent for free, basically. It's slightly weaker, but it is a nice boost. Getting those rapid kills for Hatchling will also proc Winning Hand, making combatants explode with solar damage. Radiant Orbs gives us Radiant when picking up orbs. It's pretty self-explanatory. It's really good when paired with the Powerful Attraction mod on your class item, where using Phoenix Dive will automatically pick up orbs and pickups nearby. Shield Crush in the 5th column also gives us faster grenade recharge and bonus damage while radiant or amplified. If we have Woven Mail, Frost Armor, or a Void Overshield, our melee gets those buffs as well. Finally, Transference. Bonus grenade and melee damage while Transcendent. Weapon final blows while Transcendent refund both light and dark energy after it ends. This is great. It helps keep our cycle going with ability spam capabilities and some bonus damage reduction. It also lets me segue into the Prismatic Transcendence Grenade for Warlock, Freezing Singularity. It's both a vortex and a dusk field combined into one. Overload champions hate this thing. Landing one on them will slow them, which is a stun, and the final explosion will suppress them, usually right after they've recovered from being stunned, which stuns them again. Not to mention the bonus shatter damage and explosion from the grenade. It's not as flashy as the Titan or Hunter ones, but it's really strong in its own right. One final change you could make to the build is to swap Threadling Grenade for Vortex, and one of the Fragments for Facet of Dominance, where Void Grenades weaken targets. Given how good Weaken is with Void Hegemony, pronunciation, Hegemony. Given how good Weaken is with Void Hegemony and Expanding Abyss in the Seasonal Artifact. So, to wrap up, spam Threadlings, spam Melees, spam Healing through Devour and Phoenix Dive, spam Explosions through Graviton or Ruinous Effigy, spam Transcendence, spam Super. You've even got every champ type covered here. It all works. Try it out. I highly, highly recommend it. I'm going to be taking this into solo dungeons, lost sectors, nightfalls, GMs when they come out, even low-man raid scenarios. I genuinely think that this will be the build for Warlock this season at least. Let me know down in the comments what you'd change and what other builds you'd like to see going forward. And if you made it to the end of the video, thank you so much for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe.